What's up? What's the word?
But Vice President Harris, has been a lot of different opinions on her as far as her locking up black men, as far with the marijuana thing. Her, I guess her ethnicity and her racism has been coming to question a lot. What did she do as vice president? How could she promise us as president? She didn't do anything as vice president. So as a person that works in you're a lobbyist, so you work in politics. These are conversations you have with people all the time. And then you said that you wanted to use your platform for people like us that look like us to understand politics. Like, what would be some things that's some rhetoric or some things that's out there that's pertaining towards her that's like the opinions and people that's been putting them false narratives down that you will want to address first, to let people know that's not true?
That's a long list. Where I start with people though in general conversations about Kamala is one, that both parties have to do a better job of getting the votes of black and brown people.
Okay.
Now we're at a time where you can see the difference between both parties if you're a black or brown person. But the Democratic Party has historically taken advantage of black people are just going to vote for them, right? So I usually start there. I feel you. I understand. We have to work to hold the Democratic Party accountable. And knowing that just because there are a lot of black and brown folks in office, they're not necessarily for us, even though they look like us. So I start with trying to help them understand, just because I'm in this world, it's a lot that I understand. From that, I think to your point about the narratives, I mean, we can talk about Kamala and how she hasn't done everything perfect. But on the flip side, when she had her stint in California, she did a lot of progressive things. She opened up, I can't remember the name of the office verbatim, but just to look into some of the convictions that were happening to make sure that folks are being tried justifiably. And then looking at step 3 would be look at Trump's platform. What has he done for black people? Don't tell me stimulus checks, because that's been debunked. To your point earlier about I know we'll talk about it in a bit, but addressing the black audience, I think her campaign team is just now getting to that point. Hey, this isn't true, y'all. But the stimulus checks were for Congress. He tried to hold them up so he can sign them. I think if we look at pre-Trump being a Republican, he was hanging out with the Clintons. He agreed with some of the Democratic platforms, and he wouldn't rent to black people. Following that, if we don't want to go to the past, let's go to the future. Look at Agenda 47. Google it. It's Trump talking about his agenda. Okay, fine. You don't want to talk about Project 2025 because you think that we're dumb enough to know that you're not associated with it. But let's go to your platform and your page that talks about bringing back stop and frisk, limiting civil rights, stuff that affects us every day, that affects people that are our brothers, cousins, sisters. But you know what I'm saying? So I think that was a long way, a long route to say, I think people have real concerns. But I think when we have somebody as Trump against a Kamala, I think it's the writing on the wall. Now, if this was Kamala against Jeb Bush, I may have some different thoughts because I tend to lean more, I'm moderate, but I have some conservative views in some instances. So I get it. I just think we have to look at the writing on the wall and what the real harm that Trump brings to our communities.
So why do you feel like a lot of black and brown people are standing up and being so loud when it comes to Trump and voting for Trump?
I have a few thoughts there. I think Trump said it in one of his speeches that, low information voters are his favorite because we're not, folks aren't able to get the real time information. I think, was that President Barack Obama that went, I forget what interview it just was, but he was at a rally and he was talking about the stimulus checks. I was on Twitter or I was on TikTok and people were saying they did not know that Trump wasn't responsible for the stimulus checks. Right. And it's if you're in this world a little bit, that really wasn't it. But some people don't have access to this information. Now, is it their fault? Possibly. But also you got real people having real life issues going on. So they're not able to tune in and to know all the facts. So I think in part it's misinformation. But on the other hand, we got to work better as politicians, as political folks to get the information out there and have conversations. I think a lot of people don't have hard conversations. To your point about Jamal Green, I disagree with most of the things he says, but I would be willing to have a conversation with him. I don't think less of him because he has these opinions that may be outrageous to some people. He can think some of the things I'm saying is faulty or whatever. But my point is we need to have more hard conversations so the real facts and the information can be on the table.
What
So when it comes to having those conversations, like how do you think, even just us as everyday human beings, like how do we better those conversations? Because a lot of times when it comes to voting for a president, it's really just like, I'm throwing you what I know and you throwing me what you know about our opposing candidates. It's never like I'm listening to you to really understand and retain the information so that I can compare and contrast whether this is a good vote for me.
That's a good question. I would say at base, facts. Because you can say the sky is purple. I'm going to say the sky is red. But we know the sky is blue. Like, we got to find a common point of true information, of valid information that we both can say, like, I disagree with you, but I know this is true. So making sure that both parties have the right information. And I think this is a great platform to maybe not talk about House Bill 678, but it's like to the chase point about, I know y'all gonna talk about it later, I think, but just like they are suing people that took advantage of the glitch, right? But like, let's talk about banks in general and black banks. And I just bringing the conversation home, especially we in Chicago, finding ways to be like, yo, I may not ever be affected by the abortion piece, right? Especially if you're a man, well, depending on your dating life and all that. But besides that, you as a man may not be directly affected by that. But if we talking about parking tickets, this red light camera,
the speeding cameras.
I got so many tickets, they on payment plan. And so talking about some of these issues that hit home, I think that's how you start the conversations. And not being offended if we walk away and say, I still don't agree with you. I understand this is your view, but like, what are the facts? So I just think as black folks, we got to have more real conversations because we do about everything else. We know what's happening on the Shade Room.
We do.
Hey, what's up? What's the word?